Hello everyone, welcome along to Suzuka in Japan for the Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli Japan. It's race 2 after yesterday's encounter, and we have plenty of exciting action for you after this morning's qualifying session has given us a very different grid to what we saw in yesterday's action. My name is Ben Constanduris. Alongside me, Filippo Zanier, who is the head of Corse Clienti here in Japan. And it is looking very, very good. A new name for us to get used to in today's action. Kazuya Oshima taking over the 168 car. It becomes the 61 car, and it's our poleman.
Yeah. The change of number is because when the car is shared and the two drivers are of different categories, in this case, Sano-san was driving yesterday was Shell Am, and today Oshima-san is Pirelli, which is our top class. So that is why the change of number. Good performance this morning, worth pole. Uchida was faster, but he was penalized for a contact on the track, 4 places penalty, so Oshima-san inherited the pole position.
Let's have a look at this wonderful Suzuka circuit, which is built in the 1960s and hasn't really changed very much since then. Undulating, sinuous, and narrow, exactly the kind of challenges a racing driver loves to do. And also, with that infamy brings a grid, because of course it hosts the Formula One World Championship as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Our drivers love to race on Formula One tracks who have history, and it doesn't really get much better than Suzuka in that sense.
What can Motohiro Kotani do? Yesterday he started in this similar position, made a mistake at Dunlop on the first lap. He went wide, dropped a couple of positions, but felt as though on certain laps he had the pace to challenge Uchida, who ran away with the victory. It's not going to be the same possibility in this race. Uchida starting on row 3 after that penalty. Qualifying was tight though between Oshima and Kotani.
Yeah, absolutely. Only
one more round in Japan to finish off our championship for 2023 in Sugo in the early part of August. And then the Finale Mondiale in Mugello, Italy is where our season ends. So a 209.5 on the pole position plays a 209.5 for Kotani. He was about half a tenth off Uchida yesterday, and he's half a tenth off pole again today.
Absolutely. Just that small margin, missing pole position. But again, the race is long, 30 minutes, a lot of management to do, a lot of strategy. So plenty of time to try and get that top spot.
Worth pointing out, though, that Uchida's time of a 207.5 was 2 seconds faster than our front row. But with the penalty, number one, it gives us a bit of something to talk to and watch over the first couple of laps, and it gives Uchida a challenge because he was kind of unchallenged all day yesterday and was able to really manage his pace.
Yeah, absolutely. Today will be different. And, yes, you are right. 2 seconds faster in his time in quali, but we have seen yesterday that it's very difficult to overtake in Suzuka.
Yeah.
So even with that pace advantage, it may not be enough for an easy cruise to the win.
The other person to watch out for is today, number 32. Yesterday, he was number 138, but Yuji Ueda was so fast that he's been upgraded from his Shell Am categorization yesterday into Pirelli Am, and therefore much more the kind of drivers he was fighting with yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. We went to see him yesterday after the race, and we explained to him that, yes, with the pace he had, he's a new driver for us, so we didn't have much information to judge his pace. That is why we put him in Shell Am. But with the performance that he showed yesterday, we had to upgrade him to Pirelli Am, which he graciously accepted. It's our decision, but drivers sometimes fight these kind of decisions because they like to be winners in the class. But he was happy. He was happy that his performance was good enough to jump 2 classes.
So 2 drivers in the Pirelli main high class, and then we have 8 drivers in Pirelli Am, and then the rest are split between the Shell and the Shell Am categories, and they will be showing on our graphics and on our timing screens. A yellow flag flying on the grid. We have a stopped car, hasn't yet got off the line, self-starting, so if there is an issue with that car, it can get going, and it is. Right, let's have a look at the grid then. Oshima lines up alongside Kotani on the front row of the grid. And second row, Eric Lowe, much better qualifying than we saw yesterday with Deske alongside him. And then on row 3, we have Uchida in 5th and Iritani in 6th position. He had a bit of fun yesterday as well. Yamaguchi on row 4 alongside Miura, the best of our Shell category drivers. And then we have Kuniero and Ueda. So actually Ueda qualifying down in 10th position today. A little bit of work to do to battle with his Pirelli AM rivals. Row 11, Yagura and Yoneko. And then we move on to Michael Choi and Shiraskia. And Michael Choi was leading the championship quite content in the Shell category, but yesterday consolidated decent points, but not a massive amount of points. Katayama in 15th and Yoneda in 16th position. Akita with some work to do down from 17th, to be disappointed with that qualifying spot. And Katsumata in 18th position. We've got 21 cars, so Iwatashi and Sakai on row 10. And finally, at the back of the field, Namba and Nozaki. We do have 22. Nozaki was just a bit off the pace yesterday. Found himself way at the tail end of the field. So 22 is a great entry here in Suzuka. As we spoke about yesterday, very, very happy with the numbers of this new championship effectively in Japan for 2023.
Yeah, we are definitely. You know, when we launch a new championship, we are always curious to see what is the response of the customers in the country, and Japan honestly was great. And as I said yesterday, there is more and more interest for next year, so we're waiting. We are expecting a bigger grid for Ferrari Challenge Japan 2024. But before that, we want to close 2023 in style.
Yeah, and we've got this weekend, this second race, and then of course the weekend in Sugo to finish the season. An opportunity, if you fancy having a go at the full championship in 2024, come and try it. And I suppose that's what we're seeing from a couple of our drivers this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. It's toe in the water experiences, you know, just to see and measure their pace against drivers that have much more experience. And honestly, we are having great surprises.
3.9 V8, 680 brake horsepower, these Ferrari 488 Challenge cars. And you can just see how hot it is down in the garages. We've got track temperatures decreasing a little bit from the 55 degrees we had earlier in the day. Air temperature is 35 degrees with humidity at 50%. That will play a part. It is only a half-hour race, but that will be a lot of work, a proper workout for these guys to do. Just imagine sitting in 40 degrees of heat doing physical exercise for half an hour. That's what all of these drivers will be facing. Side by side, 2 by 2, round the final turn. We're getting to go racing for race 2 here in Japan. For Ferrari Challenge, Trofeo Pirelli Japan. Waiting for those lights to go green. Oshima on the left, Kotani on the right, and look out for Uchida, going to try and make as much progress as early as possible. And they head down towards turn 1. Kotani's desperate to turn in, but there's a car on his inside and he cannot do so. The two of them are way ahead of the rest. Kotani goes a little bit wide. He manages to hold on, and that's Uchida up into 3rd position. A very, very strong start, as you would expect. Kotani's car looks so nervous though, and he doesn't quite hook up the first of the 2 apexes. He has a little bit of exuberance, as we saw in race 1, but the car is not quite there yet. He needs to be patient, and again slightly offline as Uchida starts to breathe down his neck.
Tires are cold, you know, and in these first corners it is very important to remember that, because the car can be very, very lively.
Well, that was where he made a mistake in race 1, Kotani, running a little bit wide through Dunlop. It's okay this race though, this lap, and the tyres are cold. They're kind of warm, but they're not at operating temperature. they certainly wouldn't be cold to the touch because it is so warm outside, and no doubt drivers have done all they can to get the temperature into the rims and the tyres before the start of this race. Plenty of mixing up of the field in these first couple of laps, first couple of corners I should say. Katayama dropping down to the tail end of the field. I wonder if that's a transponder issue for the 157 car, or whether indeed he has made a slight issue out there on the circuit.
Well, maybe we will see the start again. It would be interesting to see also because Uchida's start was remarkable. He found the gap and managed to pass 2 cars right before turn 1.
Got past Desgate, got past Eric Lowe as well, the 2 yellow machines that have just come through the shot, and Uchida ahead of Kotani before they even get to the 130R. I imagine that was a bit of a drag race out of the spoon curve, and now Uchida chases down Oshima. I was hoping for a little bit longer to hold him back, because he really does have a much greater pace than the rest. Over the line, lap 1 completed. Oshima leads. Uchida are 2 Pirelli drivers at the head of the field. Then it's Kotani with Eric Lowe in 4th, Desgate and Iritani, Yamaguchi, Yagura, and then the best of the Shell drivers is Kunihiro in the 192 machine. And it does look as though Katayama either didn't take the start or has gone missing on lap 1.
Yeah, it's, I didn't notice, but maybe now we will see what happened at the start.
So look at that silver car in the middle of the shot. Opens the door between the 2 yellow machines. And then Kotani, I don't know what he's trying to do, but there's definitely a car to his inside. It puts him wide, and he's very, very lucky to get away with this. Look at the black... There was a black line that came off the back of that car all the way round turn 2 as he laid the power down.
Yeah, as you said, Ben, 680 horsepower and twin turbo, so a lot of torque. So when drivers step on the gas, yes, black lines are a common occurrence.
It has driver aids though, right? It has driver aids like traction control.
Yeah, there is traction control. Every driver can choose different options on how much to dial traction control in, how much help to use. Usually, in this kind of condition, the track is very, very hot, so it can be slippery. Drivers like to dial in quite a bit of aid, but it depends.
Of course, you use the rear end slip of a race car to turn the car. It's important that there's a little bit of looseness to the rear end. The more it sticks, the more understeer you ask of the car. Understeer meaning you turn the steering wheel, but the front end doesn't exactly go where you want it to go. It understeers, and so you can use the traction control when you get on the power to slightly spin up the rear wheels, which also helps you turn the car. It does affect tyre wear as well,
and that can be a major factor on a day like today.
So it does seem as though we lost Katayama on lap 1 in sector 1. Race control not reporting exactly where he is, but certainly has not completed the first sector. Oshima and Uchida.
Yeah, from the same dealer, Ferrari dealer, so from the same team, Rosso Scuderia. You can see identical livery for the 2 cars.
A little bit of yellow stripes to identify the 2 cars, the yellow wing mirrors and the red wing mirrors. Always very courteous of teams to be able to identify the 2 different cars in different liveries, even though they're basically the same. And as we saw yesterday, Uchida just looks so planted in that car. He's going to have to be careful about how he overtakes. Oh, that's a little bit behind. He's very brave in throwing it down the inside of his teammate that aggressively, but he does make it stick. Uchida moves it to the head of the field. Oshima drops down to second. So Oshima with the experience of yesterday, of all of that track knowledge, whereas we didn't have Oshima with us on track yesterday. Presumably he was here, but watching.
Yeah, he was here. When drivers share the car, We have one doing qualifying 1 and race 1, and the other one doing qualifying 2 and race 2. So Oshima was definitely here. He took part actually in free practice on Friday and in open practice, but yesterday he was just a spectator.
And is the sharing a budget thing, usually?
It can be a budget thing. It can also be, let's say, the slowest drivers wanting to have a faster driver with him to have a reference.
Okay.
You know, sometimes it helps to learn and actually get faster and faster, more acquainted with the car, having a reference on the same car. So it depends.
Uchida leads Oshima, and here is our leader in class down in Shell, 192. Kunihiro with a 1.6 second advantage over yesterday's winner in class, Miura, and Choi in third spot. But struggling, Michael Choi, with this particular circuit, because so dominant in the points across the season so far, but just hasn't really seemed to make it stick here.
Yeah, the thing is, obviously, Choi is a driver from Hong Kong, and the last time that Challenge APAC raced in Suzuka was actually 2017. So Michael Choi, compared to the Japanese drivers, he has much less experience of this circuit, and he is getting acquainted with it lap after lap, but obviously he cannot replace the experience that all these drivers that are locals have on the Japanese tracks.
However, he was very good in Fuji.
Yeah, he was. He was, but because Challenge APAC has been racing in Fuji every year until 2019, so Michael knows Fuji much better than what he knows Suzuka.
Choi sits in third position then.
And speaking about drivers from Hong Kong, Eric Lowe is doing a much better job than he was doing yesterday. You know, he's now P4 and second in class. So amazing performance so far.
We just picked up on the 81 machine of Iritani. He's only half a second ahead of Yamaguchi in the 15. That's probably the closest battle on circuit, although look at the pace of Kotani here. Kotani's reeled in Oshima. We saw in qualifying how closely matched these two were, and we saw that actually at times Kotani was able to match Uchida yesterday, but he has to be so careful. It's been a bit win or bust for Kotani across the year, and he'll need to be careful not to make an error trying to get past Oshima. There's no need to try and get past. He is still leading his class, but of course they're racing drivers. Is there a car in front of you? You want to pass it.
We actually tell them all the time, when you are leading your class, no need to try and pass the guy in front. But as you said, you know, when they put the helmet on and they see a car that is so close, they want to overtake.
They don't never listen to you. You have race control and drivers' briefings and stuff like that, but come on, they're racing drivers. They're naughty in nature.
They are racers, you know, and this is what we like about them.
Kotani with a much more direct line here through the S-curves. As we saw yesterday with him, doesn't swoop around these curves and make them as long as possible. It seems to just go more to the apex and try and straighten them as much as possible, but I'm not necessarily sure whether it's the best kind of position for the car. You can see how much time he's lost to Oshima ahead of him. Further back, a change of position. We've got where's this? Down in 18th position, Namba passing Sakai. No, it wasn't. It was Hiwatashi trying to get past Namba and not managing to do so. So for 19th position.
Yeah, we have also Akita, who is coming up in the field. He had a very unlucky qualifying session. He had his best lap that was cancelled for a track limits infringement, and then while he was posting another fast lap, he got in contact with Uchida and spun. So his grid position did not reflect his pace, and now he's making strides.
Yeah, he's just got past Michael Choi there. We were just watching him, and he's got two more of the Shell drivers to get past.
He was starting P17, he's P12 now.
Yeah, good effort. As again, Kotani looks to the inside. Oshima missing the apex to both parts of the chicane there, and that is going to give Cortani more of a run around the final turn. Not potentially close enough yet to make a move, but he is drawing in on second position. Oshima sits to the middle of the road. Cortani goes up to the racing line. That allows him to sweep through turn one, and really the overtaking place is here. Try and get down the inside into turn two. The turn one these days, being reprofiled a few times, but these days is really just a braking zone because of the camber, the way that the corner is banked. You can carry so much more speed than you would do if it was flat. Again, you can see a very different line from Cortani. I feel as though this is where he's kind of losing out. He almost needs to look at the way Oshima is tackling those first couple of corners. Follow him and learn from him, because he should realize that through that first sector he is losing time to Oshima right now, and he needs to kind of analyze that and go, right, okay, what can I do better here?
Yeah, but you know, after like 5 hours of track time since the beginning of the weekend, if that is what he learned to do, change now in just a few minutes, it's not an easy thing to do.
It's very good through the Degnas, isn't he? And late on the brakes into the hairpin, tries to get on the power. The rear end steps out, a little bit of corrective lock. The traction control will have kicked in there and got the car straight for him. And he's desperately trying to carry that momentum. Here's your leader in the Shell category. Watch behind though, because Akita is coming from 12th. So Kunihiro is in 10th position, Miura in 11th, but Akita is the faster. And actually I think Akita may even clear. He's got 6 seconds actually to catch up to these two, so a bit of time before Akita gets there. Let's switch our attention back then to this battle for second position. Again, black lines being laid by Cortani. He's asking so much of this car, moving around under the brakes. And again, Oshima will be looking in his mirrors, wondering what on earth is going on and when is this dark kind of browny red machine going to fire its way down the inside. Rust colour. Is it allowed to be called rust colour?
Yeah, you are allowed.
It's various shades of rust colour with a bit of black in the middle. Nice and tidy from Oshima this time through turns 1 and 2. This is where he is better.
Yeah, it looks actually that Cortani is asking much more to the car. You know, the car is squirming, is moving a lot. Oshima seems much more planted.
He's aggressive with the car, isn't he? He's throwing it around. And that's okay if the car is compliant to it. But you are living on the edge a little bit more by throwing the car around like that. Better line up through Dunlop from Cortani over Oshima, which will allow him more momentum into Degna. But it's here, I think, where Cortani's very, very good. Through Degna 1 and then into Degna 2. Again, big camber and big dips in the road, which help the car stick to the ground.
Here we have a Katsumata and Yoneda, 2 cars from different classes, so not fighting the same fight, but as we said, if you're faster, you will still try to go through.
And you can see the difference in body language of the cars versus what we're seeing from Cortani, who really turns hard left, hard right. It squishes the suspension. It pushes the tyres down into the ground and makes those tyres work as hard as possible. But for some of the guys a bit further back, the inputs are more soft. You're not forcing the car to do anything.
And we actually see that even, you know, when we check, for example, the consumption of brake discs and brake pads, which we monitor constantly to make sure, obviously, that the car are always in perfect shape, we can see how the different driving styles impact actually the wear of the spare parts. So it is very interesting.
I imagine some of your Shell Am drivers can do a full season on a set of tyres and full season on a set of brakes.
No, we're not there, but there are significant differences between the Pirelli drivers, the faster Pirelli drivers, and the Shell Am drivers. There is
keep the costs down as well.
Yeah, it does.
You know, don't have to change a set of brakes and discs every single race. Cortani again, he's good out of the chicane. He's not too bad in the braking zone of turn 1 and 2, but then look how direct he is through here, and you need the car to work so much harder for you. My concern for his style, just as we're talking about consumption, is that come the end of the race, his tyres particularly will be asking no more.
Well, we will see very soon, because we are now heading into the last third of the race. So this should be the moment where the tires, if they are starting to struggle, we should see it.
Seems as though Katayama may not have even started the race by the looks of our timing screens. He's now been fully removed. So that's a shame. Kotani. Well, he's providing us with plenty of entertainment. Just about held on there. And giving the Suzuka circuit more and more Pirelli tyre rubber. Again, the rear end complains. Now, this is to see, once you start sliding and you create temperature on the surface of that tyre, then that tyre doesn't work as well. Then it slides more, which makes it work less well. And you get into this vicious circle where he really needs to just start to be a little bit more gentle.
Yeah. The driver in this case needs to have really the presence of spirit to do one lap with an attitude to try and cool off, try to be as fast as he can be, but trying to cool off the tire a bit.
It strikes me that Kotani might not have that chilled attitude when behind the steering wheel of a race car.
And I was looking, the fight between Iritani and Yamaguchi, it has become, now it's not a fight anymore. Yamaguchi is has actually probably given up. Now we have 3 seconds between the two.
Here we go. Once again, absolutely lays the car on the line through the first egg nut, and now turns into the second. And actually, he's just a little bit late coming off the brakes. And so he's turned in with the brakes still on, and that has, because the load is on the front wheels, it makes the rear wheels feel light, and the rear turns more. As we were talking about the traction control, same kind of thing. More load on the front means less load on the rear. The rear is lighter, it turns easier, and that's how you induce a slide. And we saw that very clearly there.
And it was beautifully held, and I have to say, I don't think he's very high with this traction control setting, because the car was still getting out of the corner very well. The car didn't stop.
Here we go, look at this. 10th position. Kunihiro, Miura behind, and now joined by Akita. So Akita making that recovery drive, expecting him to clear these two, but it could mix up the lead in Shell at the same time.
Yeah, I think Kunihiro obviously wants this win that he didn't manage to get yesterday. He's very close, but it's clear that Miura is fast.
The good news is Kunihiro has plenty. What's going on here? Kunihiro has got plenty of. Has only got one car to battle with. Yesterday there was a group of them all fighting over the same piece of tarmac. He only has to worry about Miura now. He can let Akita go. Although actually for the moment Akita is not trying to get past these two.
Well, Akita doesn't as much to us to the race, because unfortunately he's way back in Pirelli Yam. So maybe he's thinking about leaving these guys to their battle.
Just hearing that was Nozaki in the 120 that sadly has retired out of the race, whether he's decided it's just too hot, or trying to cool down. He was our back marker yesterday, and he's brought his 488 into the pits. There's Eric Lowe. Haven't seen too much of Eric. 4th position in the yellow machine. A decent gap to Kotani, but also a decent gap to Deske behind.
4th position overall, but 2nd in class. So definitely a podium for him. And I'm sure he will be delighted, because his improvement throughout the weekend has been really impressive.
What he'll be wanting is Oshima and Kotani to get really physical with each other. At the moment, Kotani's been crawling all over the back of Oshima, trying to get past, but actually it's been quite clean between the two of them. But Eric Lowe could be gifted a victory in that class if the two of them come together. Here's Ochida. 10 seconds to the good. Best lap time of a 2:10.1, so a good couple of seconds slower than we had in qualifying. And lap times are now in the 12s. We did see the drop-off of almost 4 or 5 seconds by the end of race 1. And again, through that hairpin, nice and careful for Catani. It does feel as though he's settled down a little bit over the last couple of laps. The gap has grown to over a second. But once again, he doesn't need to really pass.
And his first sector is 5/10 quicker than Oshima, so he's trying to close the gap, definitely.
Further back, the battle for Shell. Still the same 3 cars, with no more progress from Akita here. He's managed to clear Choi, Shirashiki and Katsumata on his progress through the field after that disappointing qualifying session. I suppose the thing for him is he's not going to gain anything by overtaking those 2, and he's probably too far away from Ueda to gain any more positions in his class.
I think you're right, Ben. I think he's just, trying to get to the end of the race, and with the car in perfect condition and ready for Sugo in 2 weeks' time.
It's quite nice, isn't it? There's not huge amounts of work to need to be done on these cars. They're all very clean. There's been very little physicality between any of the drivers. We haven't seen anyone off the circuit. And so you can just put them in the box, send them up to Sugo, and unpack them again. Bit of polish. Perfect. We were talking yesterday about the dealers running these cars, entering these cars, but also running these cars. I presume they're quite simple in terms of setup changes for the drivers to make, because when you're first coming into motorsport, you don't necessarily want a plethora of things that you can change on the car.
Yeah, absolutely. The car is much simpler than, let's say, a GT3 car in terms of setup choices. You can obviously choose different spring ratings. You can play with the ride height. You can play with the wing, but drivers, they don't necessarily at this stage have the sensibility to really go deeper in what they need. So yeah, it's a constant work with the engineers and the technicians to try and suit the car to the driving style, but with pretty simple technical adjustments.
The more improvement is going to come out of the driver rather than tweaking a tire pressure or things like that.
Absolutely.
Uchida pitches the number 1 into the 130R, 12.3 ahead. And you can see how the way he works the car, he gets the car to do the work for him rather than working the car. The harder and later you are on the brakes, the more traction you get from the front wheels because they're being pushed into the ground. That more grip, therefore, you have to turn the corner. And that's the tricky thing from progressing from a Shell Am driver up to a Pirelli driver, is that it's counterintuitive to brake later and brake harder when you are learning your craft. You almost have to, you're arguing against yourself.
You do, but actually then when you do it, you discover that often you are actually helping the car to do what it should do, so it is...
But you have to be brave.
You have to.
It's pushing yourself out of your natural comfort zone, because it's not something you would do on the road. Katani's all over the place there. I think he missed the apex and was running a little bit wide. This looks like a good chance for Miura here. Is he close enough going into turn 1? Not quite close enough there. And really, as we mentioned yesterday, overtaking opportunities around Suzuka, because the circuit is so narrow as well, it's not very easy. You have to be very, very decisive with your passing.
And I think that this is what is happening to Kotani. He managed to close the gap again to Oshima. But then when he gets behind and he has to find a way to pass, then it's when he starts overdriving.
Yeah. Very different lines between Kunihiro, Miura and Akita through the S-bends. all on very different parts of the circuit. Akita trying to distract the guys ahead now, slightly offline, missing from the mirrors. It's always a concern. Oh, I think Miura here has got a good run out of Degna 2. Closing the gap on Kunihiro. We saw this yesterday as we got to the closing stage of the race. Some drivers faded more than others. Wasn't quite close enough to make a move there, though.
It's also a physical struggle then.
Yeah.
You know, in the car it's very hot, so not all the drivers are in the same physical shape. Some fade more than others.
We are 34.5 degrees track temperature, air temperature, sorry, outside, and 53 track temperature. Surely these cars have got air conditioning though, right?
Yeah, they have. And most of the drivers, they wear cool suits to keep the body temperature down, but their effectiveness over the race slowly fades.
Yeah. Cool suit, very clever little system that runs cold water through a tubing system that you would usually see on underfloor heating if you've ever seen an underfloor heating system. But rather than running hot water through it, it runs cold water through the system, through a vest that you wear underneath your race suit, and keeps the body temperature down. Constantly stays cool as well, rather than static water, which would obviously heat up pretty quickly. 2 minutes and 45 seconds remaining. A lap is 2 minutes and 10, and 2 minutes and 15. And here we go, Akita miles away from the mirrors of Miura there. And again, trying this distraction technique of moving around in the mirrors and then disappearing. And then when you disappear from the mirrors, the guy in front goes, oh, hang on a second, he must be alongside me, but I can't see him. And that's where they make a mistake. We saw it in the GT3 race earlier on today. It's a technique of intimidation and confusing your opponent. But it didn't work.
We can clearly see that Akita is more paced than the guys in front. But I think he's trying to stay respectful and don't disturb the battle too much. But then, obviously, if he feels that he's losing too much time, he will try a move.
I mean, he's got 2 easy positions, in theory, to get himself at least into the top 10 overall. It may not matter for the class positions. It's going to be a day where he doesn't pick up many points for his class position. But it'd still be nice to make some more overtakes. And you get the feeling also that Miura surely can find a way past Kunihiro. Very tidy through the hairpin. They've got, I'd say, 1 more lap to go from where we are now. Kotani, can he do anything about getting that second position? Again, he's moving around in the braking zone. Oshima being very tidy, very careful through the chicane. But then why not? Why not just be super careful on the apexes? Because Kotani can't get past there. And then when you need to, you stick your foot down and look at the gap he's grown.
Yeah, and it looks like Kotani's car is breaking traction.
Oh yeah,
quite a lot.
Constantly. He's been doing for the whole half an hour. He's just leaning on that car so much. It would be an interesting technique in the wet, that's for sure. Because he does transfer the weight quite aggressively from one side to the other.
It is working for him though, you know, because when you look at his class, he's obviously leading his class and actually challenging a guy that is in a upper class than him. So, still good job.
It has been generally a very good weekend. If you look at the results across the other rounds, this has by far been the most solid haul of points for Kotani. The clock drops down to 0 then. This is the final lap, half a lap to go, and Kotani not close enough to Oshima. There is a back marker ahead of them. Will that play a part and create an opportunity on these final couple of turns for Kotani? Further back, is that Akita who's got past? Yes, Akita, has got past one. He now goes for another one, and we've had a change for the lead in Shell. Miura ahead of Kunihiro. Akita now clears both of them, but away from our cameras, we've seen a change for the lead in Shell on the very last lap again. Here comes Uchida though, with some work to do in the early stages after his issues in qualifying. He dominated race 1 from lights to flag. And pretty much, if you exclude the first lap, Uchida's done it again. He wins here in Suzuka. One last chance from Kotani through the chicane, and he's not quite close enough. It's been a spirited attack from Kotani throughout this half-hour race. Oshima will hold on to second, and Kotani will win his class once more. And for the rest of the classes, Eric Lowe comes over the line for second in class. Deske holding on to fifth because Iritani was very close by the end. Then Yamaguchi, Ueda and Yagura come across the line. Ueda making up a position there on the last lap as well, up into eighth. And then here is that battle that we followed for the lead in Shell.
It would be nice to see if Akita played a role in the overtake that Ueda made on Kunihiro.
Miura wins from Kunihiro, and Choi will pick up third position once again. We follow the leader in Shell, Am, in the 100 car. Konioka, he comes to the line well clear of his rivals. And once again, the Ferrari Challenge entertains. Uchida waves and thanks the marshals around the back end of the circuit, waves to the crowd as well.
Well, it was for sure more difficult than yesterday for him, but the fact that he managed to find the gap immediately and to pass two cars even before turn one made his race much easier than it could have been if he had to pick 4 cars over the race.
He potentially didn't need to be as aggressive as that, though. I think he had the ultimate pace to clear off. In half an hour, he gained 15 seconds on Oshima. Half a second per lap faster. But why not? Good work also from Miura. Spent lots of time looking at the rear end of Kunihiro, but managed to get himself up into the lead of Shell by the end. So Uchida wins by 15 seconds over Oshima. Oshima held off Kotani's attack for the majority of the race. Kotani 10 seconds clear of his nearest rival in Pirelli Am, Eric Lowe and Deske. And then Miura wins Shell ahead of Kunihiro, and Michael Choi with Yonioka winning Shell Am. And now we have the fun and games of the podiums. Pirelli, Pirelli Am, Shell and Shell Am are our podiums. And as with yesterday, I'm sure it'll be a family affair. The good thing about today, though, is that they don't have to worry about their race suits until Sugo in 2 weeks' time, and so they can spray the champagne. A very, very happy Yude Uchida.
Bravo! Bravo, bravo, bravo.
As we mentioned a little bit earlier, the great thing is they can park these cars in the container, take them up to Sugo, unload them, and put them back on the racetrack. Very, very clean running from our Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli Japan contenders. How hard a work was that, though, for Uchida? Yes, he didn't have much in terms of a challenge from behind, but he still had to keep his car on circuit, and he still had 30 minutes in 35 degrees air temperature. And it's clear, oh, the man has done some work. Gets towels down. And certainly needs a little bit of hydration as well. The man has worked hard, and that was out fighting. Can't imagine what it might be for Kotani, who had a big old fight on his hands throughout that whole half an hour. A beautiful day here in Suzuka. A beautiful weekend of race action, highly entertaining, and great to have Ferrari Challenge on the program this weekend. Here are the highlights then of race 2, and Uchida having to start from row 3 after a penalty from qualifying, but he muscled his way between two yellow Ferraris and up into third position. Kotani made a very good start, trying to go around the outside of Oshima, but it wasn't possible. He struggled with the car on the first couple of corners, as everybody bar Katayama managed to make it round the first turn. The two teammates came together then, Uchida finding a way past Oshima, nice and cleanly through the hairpin, and then set off, creating a 15-second gap by the end. And we had then Oshima under pressure from Kotani. He tried all he could, left, right. Sometimes a little bit over the limit for Kotani. This amazing slide through Degner 2, he was able to hold on, and it wasn't the only one that he had. Further back, the battle for the shell category. Kunihiro holding on for the majority of the race over Miura, but once Akita joined them, who had also had a poor qualifying session, it then became a three-way battle. Kotani just could not find a way through. He struggled through the S-bends, but he was so much better through the faster turns. But ultimately there was no way through. Uchida took the victory as he had done yesterday. The flag fell ahead of Oshima and Kotani at the head of the field. And it's a job well done. 2 victories here in Suzuka for Yude Uchida. And there's the confirmation once more. Uchida winning by 15 seconds over Oshima, with Kotani 0.6 of a second back. Eric Lowe in 4th and Deska in 5th. In the shell category, Miura taking the victory on the last lap from Kunihiro. Michael Choi not too bad in the end, 12 seconds back in 3rd position, consolidating his championship lead. And then in shell am, Yonioka, Yoneda and Namba will be your podium. We had just 2 retirements. Katayama didn't start the race, and Nozaki. It's the end of the day for the Suzuka Marshals here. All of our racing is done and dusted. The single-seaters, the Toyota Yaris Cup, the Fanatec GT World Challenge Asia powered by AWS, and the Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli Japan. Just one more weekend in Japan for these guys in Sugo, and then they'll be focusing their attention on the World Finals, where all the different championships from across the world come together and have a festival of atmosphere in Mugello. The fan flying as fast as it possibly can. It is clear that the drivers out there have worked very, very hard. On their knees, Uchida didn't even really battle, but still is certainly feeling the heat. And I think being down there, he's in the fans' wake, if you like, and therefore he's actually getting a little bit of that cool air on him. There's Filippo congratulating our drivers. Thank you, Filippo, for your wise words in the commentary box. And as he said in the comms, this is only the start for this championship. 22 cars is a pretty decent lineup, but there is no doubt that they are going to have more and more cars as the season progresses and next year, of course. If you are sitting and watching this YouTube stream, get in touch with Filippo Zanier, head of the Corse Clienti across the Asia region. Plan A to race in Japan next year. Plan B to have a China and other national championships. And then plan C to get back to the days of the APAC championship as well, like we have in Europe. So we wait for the podium ceremony. Can't be too long now. Most of the drivers must be up there. And they could do with a dousing of cold champagne. Just an idea of how many trophies we've got and podiums that we've got. There's the Pirelli podium. I think that's for the fastest lap. We also have a gentleman driver trophy. Pirelli, Shell and Shellam. All we need now is to get the drivers up there. There is the podium. The Formula One Grand Prix of Japan will be here in a couple of months' time. The last October Formula One race for a while. It looks as though the Japanese Grand Prix has a new home in the spring on the F1 calendar. To back it in the early part of the season with China to try and make the travelling more sustainable.
ただいまよりフェラーリチャレンジトロフェオピレリジャパン2023ラウンド4レース2の暫定表彰式を行います。表彰式の進行を務めます久保田康介です。まずはじめにトロフェオピレリクラスの表彰から始めます。選手をお呼びしましょう。第2位はカーナンバー61ロッソスクーデリア大島和也選手、どうぞお越しください。そして優勝はカーナンバー1ロッソスクーデリア内田雄大選手、どうぞお越しください。それではトロフィーの授与です。2位の選手にトロフィーが授与されます。プレゼンターはロジスティクス&プランニングマネージャー川戸智弘です。大島選手おめでとうございます。続きまして1位の選手にトロフィーが授与されます。プレゼンターはグループオブスピードスポーツ顧問正木義弘です。内田選手おめでとうございます。続きましてトロフェオピレリトロフィーが1位の選手に授与されます。プレゼンターはピレリジャパンモータースポーツマネージャー五北健です。皆様大きな拍手をお送りください。さあそれではフォトセッションへと参ります。選手の皆さんはトロフィーを高々と掲げてください。フォトセッションお願いします。それではプレゼンターの皆様もどうぞお上がりください。さあそれでは皆様拍手のご協力いただけますでしょうか。お願いします。フォトセッションです。グランドスタンダーの皆様もありがとうございます。続きましてシャンパンファイトです。準備をお願いいたします。 あそれでは参りましょうか。シャンパンファイトどうぞ。トロフェオピレリクラス第2位はカーナンバー61大島和也選手、そして優勝はカーナンバー1内田雄大選手です。どうぞ皆様改めまして大きな拍手をお送りください。お二人おめでとうございます。以上をもちましてトロフェオピレリクラスの暫定表彰式を終了します。
Time for the second podium then.
続きましてトロフェオピレリアマクラスの表彰です。選手をお呼びしましょう。第3位はカーナンバー66コーンズ芝デスケ選手、どうぞお越しください。そして第2位はカーナンバー99ブラックバードコンセッショネアーズエリック・ロー選手、そして優勝はカーナンバー28コーンズ大阪小谷元弘選手です。それではトロフィーの授与へと移ります。3位の選手にトロフィーが授与されます。プレゼンターはグループオブスピードスポーツ顧問正木義弘です。デスケ選手おめでとうございます。2戦連続の表彰台入りとなりました。続きまして2位の選手にトロフィーが授与されます。プレゼンターはフェラーリジャパンモータースポーツダイレクター稲垣光次が行います。エリック選手おめでとうございます。そして1位の選手にトロフィーが授与されます。プレゼンターはロジスティクス&プランニングマネージャー川戸智弘が行います。小谷選手おめでとうございます。さあそれではフォトセッションへと参ります。選手の皆さんはトロフィーを高々と掲げてください。フォトセッションお願いします。ナイススマイルです。ありがとうございます。さあそれでは皆さん、選手の皆さんが笑顔になりますように拍手をお願いいたします。ありがとうございます。続きましてシャンパンファイトへと参ります。さあそれでは参りましょうか。準備よろしいですか。シャンパンファイトどうぞ。トロフェオピレリアマクラス第3位はカーナンバー66デスケ選手、第2位はカーナンバー99エリック・ロー選手、そして優勝はカーナンバー28小谷元弘選手です。3人にどうぞ大きな拍手をお送りください。以上をもちましてトロフェオピレリ
We wait for the podium to be redressed for our next set of awards. We've seen the Pirelli AMs, and now I think it's
続きまして
time for
コ
the
ッパシェルクラ
shells.
スの表彰です。選手をお呼びしましょう。第3位はカーナンバー188ブラックバードコンセッショネアーズマイケル・チョイ選手、どうぞお越しください。第2位はカーナンバー192 MO 東イタリア国広隆一選手、どうぞお越しください。そして優勝はカーナンバー104コーンズ大阪三浦和孝選手、どうぞお越しください。 続きましてジェントルマンカップの優勝者を発表しましょう。ジェントルマンカップの優勝はカーナンバー 192M オートイタリア国広隆一選手、おめでとうございます。ダブル受賞となりました。それではトロフィーの授与です。3位の選手にトロフィーが授与されます。プレゼンターはロジスティクス&プランニングマネージャー川戸智弘です。マイケル選手、おめでとうございます。続きまして2位の選手にトロフィーが授与されます。プレゼンターはグループオブスピードスポーツ顧問正木義弘が行います。国広選手、おめでとうございます。続きまして1位の選手にトロフィーが授与されます。プレゼンターはフェラーリジャパンモータースポーツダイレクター稲垣光次です。三浦選手、おめでとうございます。2戦連続クラス優勝となりました。続きましてジェントルマンカップ1位の選手にトロフィーが授与されます。プレゼンターは引き続き稲垣光次が行います。ダブル受賞となりました。おめでとうございます。さあ、それではフォトセッションへと参りましょう。選手の皆さんはトロフィーを高々と掲げてください。お願いします。さあ、では中央に寄っていただきまして、公式カメラマンの写真撮影へと参ります。さあ皆様、それではまたご協力いただきます。グランドスタンドの皆様もぜひご協力ください。メイクアビッグスマイル、拍手をお願いします。ありがとうございます。続きましてシャンパンファイトへと参ります。さあ、それでは参りましょうか。準備よろしいですか。行きましょう。シャンパンファイト、どうぞ。コッパシェルクラス第3位はカーナンバー188マイケル・チョイ選手、第2位はカーナンバー192国広隆一選手、そして優勝はカーナンバー104三浦和孝選手です。皆様改めまして拍手をお願いいたします。お送りください。以上をもちましてコッパシェルクラスの暫定表彰式を終了します。最後にコッパシェルアマクラスの表彰です。選手をお呼びしましょう。第3位はカーナンバー110オートカバリーの難波勝則選手、どうぞお越しください。第2位はカーナンバー124コーンズ大阪米田勝選手、そして優勝はカーナンバー100オートカバリーの米岡正人選手、どうぞお越しください。それではトロフィーの授与へと参ります。3位の選手にトロフィーが授与されます。プレゼンターはフェラーリジャパンモータースポーツダイレクター稲垣光次です。難波選手、おめでとうございます。続いて2位の選手にトロフィーが授与されます。プレゼンターはロジスティクス&プランニングマネージャー川戸智弘です。米田選手、おめでとうございます。続きまして1位の選手にトロフィーが授与されます。プレゼンターはグループオブスピードスポーツ顧問正木義弘が行います。米岡選手、おめでとうございます。それでは選手の皆さんはトロフィーを高々と掲げてください。フォトセッションです。 選手の皆さんもっと笑顔で参りましょう。フォトセッションです。さあ皆さん、選手をもっと笑顔にしてください。それでは拍手をお願いいたします。皆様ご協力ありがとうございます。続きましてシャンパンファイトへと参りましょう。
Well, thank you very much for joining us here in Suzuka. We've got one more round in the Japanese series in Sugo in a couple of weeks' time. And our podium contenders all with smiles and champagnes. Thank you, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks for Sugo. Until then, have a great time.